All right, guys, what's up? So let's have a quick sort of 50-minute session where we can sort of talk to each other before we jump into the presentation. So the format of today's workshop will be pretty much like the previous workshop. We'll have like a half an hour presentation on cyberbullying. This time it will be done by Pumi, Sanjit, and Chris. And then we'll have the 41-hour creative session, 20 minutes of breakout rooms, and then the last 40 minutes kind of figuring out what the ideas are. So a couple of announcements before we get into everything. The media release form. So thank you everyone who sent it to Pumi and the official DWI email address. The rest of you guys, if you all can send it in ASAP, what we can do is we were thinking as a first step in like getting your creative content out. What we wanted to do was feature all of your artwork that you submitted in for the initial submissions. So we want to share that with everyone on Instagram and on social media, and so that you guys can share it as well. So which is why we wanted the media release form. Also, we want to kind of feature each of you as artists. And this we were thinking we want to do as a long-term process, not just with the initial submissions we put in, but later on as well. Whatever other creative ideas you guys have, maybe we can incorporate them and share them and have the conversation going with your friends and people your age, right? If there is any disagreements that you guys have with any of the clauses in media release form, please let us know as well. Like if you don't want to sign it, or if there are particular clauses you don't agree to or something like that, because we had a few questions from some of you. So if that's the case, just send us either an email or message us so that we can have a conversation and kind of clear up some of these things, right? But yeah, the quicker you can send the media release forms, the quicker we can, get all of you guys out there and also begin the conversation, not just within these workshops, but outside these workshops as well, right? Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk to you guys is about the questionnaire. So let me actually share the screen. So this is this week's questionnaire. So it's always interesting to see the results of these, right? So how knowledgeable are you about cyberbullying laws? So most of you said you all have some idea. So hopefully by the end of today, you'll have a clear idea about what sort of legal things you can do, what sort of reporting mechanisms you have, right? And there's quite a few of you who feel like they're very knowledgeable. So if there are things that we don't talk about, please also add into the conversation so we can make everyone aware of these things. Have you ever been bullied online? A lot of you say no, a lot of you are unsure, a lot of you say yes, right? So that's kind of like a 50-50 split in terms of people who are not sure or who have been bullied versus people who think that they've definitely not been bullied, right? And then do you feel like you've been a cyber bully? So there's about 11% of you guys who think you have been, which is great, which is shows that you are, great in the sense
that you're self-aware.
Exactly. Yeah. It shows that you guys are self-aware, which is great. So hopefully you can actually like avoid being a cyberbully. And then there's a few of you who are not sure, which is also interesting. And some of you who think you definitely aren't. So we'll discuss these things, and maybe by the end of it, all your perceptions will change. Also, what sort of subtle ways does cyberbullying happen? And this was really interesting. There were a lot of really good answers about how, it's not, there are lots of ways where cyberbullying is not explicit, but like happen without us even knowing, or like happen through ways that we don't really categorize as bullying, but then the impact and the consequences the same essentially. So we can discuss
everyone who just joined, these are the results from your questionnaire, guys.
So the last one is list a few ways cyberbullying differs from bullying in general. Here, there's a lot of interesting things to talk about, and I think in Pumi's presentation, we'll get into more of it in detail. But thanks a lot for answering these, guys. I think it gives us a really good idea of where everyone is at, and helps us kind of figure out what sort of things we should talk to you guys about. And so as annoying as this questionnaire might be, thanks like for taking the time to answer them. By the way, if they're like too long or too annoying, just let us know, right? Because we are trying to figure out like, because it's like research for us, right? So I hope it's as interesting to you guys as much as it's interesting to us to see these results, these summaries of results, right? So hopefully at some point we would want you guys to design some questionnaires as well, maybe to your friends and family and things like that, but we'll get to those later, right? Okay, so that's about the questionnaire results. So the other thing I want to talk to you guys is about Discord, right? So we've decided to move to Discord because we sent a questionnaire to most of you, and most of you are already aware of Discord. And I think the advantage is we can divide you guys easily into groups. We can have those conversations in separate groups rather than the WhatsApp message thread getting kind of clogged up. So in terms of a platform to work on collaboratively, Discord will be great. So by the way, if any of you need any translations or anything while I'm talking, please let us know in the chat room. Okay, I'm just going to keep talking in English. So by the end of today's session, we'll give the Discord link, and maybe Nishant can give you guys a quick tour of it as well. But we'll do that towards the end of today's session, and then we'll add all of you guys to Discord. The other thing is, if any of you are not familiar with Discord or haven't used it or not sure how to use it, what we can do is we can have a quick 5-10 minute session maybe next time or even midweek, or you can contact one of us and ask us any questions about how to use it and things like that. And honestly, it's very easy. You kids are really smart, so I'm pretty sure you all will pick it up pretty quickly, right? You can think of it as a combination of like WhatsApp and Zoom and Slack and all these other kind of platforms. So it also has a lot of advantages because everything's nicely kind of separated and categorized. I'll actually show you guys your Discord server, and maybe towards the end of it, Nishant can give you a more in-depth kind of, if you have time, a more in-depth kind of view of it. So this is Discord, and this is your Reconnect Us channel, right? So you can see here, everything is divided into, there's a separate chat thread for the directors, a separate chat thread for the writers, the performers, production team, right? And then there's also like announcements and informations. We can maybe have another channel for questionnaires
or
and
random chats if you want.
Yeah, and random chats and things like that, so that things don't get mixed up. You know, like for example, yeah, let's say we are talking about writing the script, and in the middle someone shares like some random story. Then things will get, you know, confusing, right? So this will really help us keep everything divided, right? And you can also take calls inside of Discord itself, right? Which will make things really easy. All right, so more about that towards the end of today's session. We move to, it's only a couple times. Sure what that means, but all right, so yeah, one thing I wanted to talk to all of you about before we jump into the presentations. So this will take about 5 minutes, and I actually want your ideas about this as well. Right, so about how we are going to do these videos, right, and the limitations that we have, right, and sort of a breakdown of really the process that we are trying to kind of follow in putting out these scripts, right? So we were thinking now when we go into the breakout rooms and moving forward, there are a few limitations all of us need to be aware of, right? First are very practical limitations, right? So one of the practical limitations is time. We don't have much time. We have a large group of 23 people, and we have 4 topics to cover, right? So we have to keep building on top of these workshops and keep going, right? Even if, for example, a month later you have a brilliant idea for a video around privacy, right? Unfortunately, like for the main final video, it will be tough for us to do it because we have to have this process where everyone is involved in the creative process and all that stuff, right? But what we want to do is, if you all have ideas like that, we don't want to drop them, right? Now, last time Imad had some ideas, Dimuthu has some ideas, like, and most of you probably will get ideas, right? So what we want to tell you guys is, so we have this collective called the Digital Wellbeing Initiative that we started under which this program is happening. So even if we can't do it for this particular project, this Reconnect Us project is what we're calling it, what we'll do is we'll try to take those things and maybe after this project is over, explore them and push them forward, right? So within the limitations of this project, unfortunately, we have to keep moving forward, right? So for example, if we discuss the privacy ideas in the breakout rooms and come up with those ideas, we kind of have to work within those limitations, right? But do our best to develop them and go into depth into them. Right now we have the idea for the privacy thing, but there's nothing stopping us for going really in depth in that idea, right? We can analyze it, we can create cool characters around it and all that stuff, right? But like starting a completely new idea is going to be tough, right? But like I said, if you guys have like amazing, cool ideas, that's awesome, right? So if you please share those with us so that maybe we can do that as like a secondary thing or a tertiary thing, like after this program is done, right? The other very practical limitation we have is in terms of budget and production, right? So there were cool ideas like the fairy tale idea, which I love, but we have to stick within our budgetary limitations and also the ability to shoot and also like getting costumes and all that stuff. So we have a few limitations in those as well, right? So also the reason I'm having this conversation is because I think you guys are way more smarter than we expected, right? To be completely honest, like you guys, and that's a really good thing, right? So I feel like we can have these conversations with you guys and make you all even more of a bigger part in the production process, right? So, yeah, so when we are thinking about the ideas, be aware of these limitations as well, because I feel like these limitations can also help us come up with really creative, innovative ways of trying to convey the concepts that we are trying to understand, right? So those are the practical stuff, right? Basically time, money, production, shooting, all the stuff, right? Then I think the other kind of constraint we have to think about is our audience, right? Who our audience is and what is it that they're trying to convey to people, right? So this is something I think as artists, like all of you guys are artists, and this is something I think we will agree is something artists have to think about as well, right? So now in this particular project, our goal is to talk to a general audience of kids your age. And again, this is a credit to you guys. I think you guys are slightly, I don't want to like make you guys like gain a huge ego or whatever, but my general feeling is most of you guys are smarter than a general population of kids, right? You guys are great art, like looking at the submissions that they brought in and the way you guys think, we really appreciate it.
Or more like self-aware.
More self-aware than most people, right?
Yeah.
And so, but our final output has to go to a general audience of kids your age, and not only within the circles that you guys are in, right? So
demographically
different, language differences, social classes differences, all of that, right? Just levels of awareness about these issues, like within this group itself. Looking at the questionnaires, there are some of you who are like super aware of some of these problems, like privacy and things. Some of you who only started thinking about it at this workshop, right? So we have that huge like gamut of or range of like people, right? And when you go out of this workshop, it's even wider, right? So the gap and the range of knowledge. So our target theory is to talk to as many people as possible, right? And so it was really cool where some of you had different nuanced ideas. Like for example, Dimutu was talking about what if you look at it from the villain side, right? Like
predators.
What if you look, and that's a really like trust me, as an artist and as someone who likes to think about things, that's a really great way of like to think about problems. Like it's not always. I don't want any of you guys to just listen to us and not question us, right? So it's great. I think Imad was even questioning us about like, you know, why are we always hating on the private companies? Now I might disagree with him, but I appreciate the fact that there is that disagreement, and we want you guys to think about that as well. But again, the constraint comes into play, right? When we are making the videos, we can now talk about all these like complicated things and nuances, but we have to question whether the general audience we are pushing this for, A, whether they appreciate it to the same level, and B, whether they even need it when they haven't even thought about it at all to begin with, right? So what we're trying to do here is at least get people thinking about the issue. So it has to be slightly bland in that sense, right? I mean, not bland in the sense of it being entertaining or whatever, but critical thinking wise, it will have to be slightly more watered down than like a deep, nuanced 1 hour discussion about privacy, right? Because it's a 1 minute video meant for most kids, right? So you have to think about, okay, think about the general kid in your classroom who doesn't even think about these issues. And how would you even start to begin to have this conversation, right? And that's where we should enter this particular project, right? Now, I'm really happy that you guys are thinking all these complex things, which is why I feel like even after this program is done, after Reconnect Us is done, we would love to work with some of, or like almost I would say all of you, to continue to maybe have more complex versions of this discussion and build on top of this. Right?
And even the individual work that you all are doing, which is why we thought it should be like another thing we parallelly start developing.
Yes.
Like the individual scripts you write or like the other levels of work you all are doing.
Yeah. So what we can do then is like have those more complex conversations as well. And another thing we can attempt to do is when we make these 1 minute videos, we'll try our best as much as possible to take some of these complex ideas and try to push it to people, right? Like, I don't think we should shy away from that, which is why I think using things like humor, using things like, stuff like that to take some of these complex ideas as much as we can, right? And push it to people, that would be amazing, right? So I'm not saying let's not, talk about any complexity or any, right? But we just need to be aware who we are talking to and what sort of message we are trying to push to the general public, right? And unfortunately, we are living in this kind of world where people aren't thinking about this at all to even begin. So we just need to light that spark, get people talking about it, and then keep engaging them so that we can have more and more kind of complex conversations, right? Okay, so if any of y'all have any like ideas around that or like any feelings around that, we can hear some of your thoughts about it as well, because I think, what do you guys think? Do you all agree or disagree? Like, you get what I'm saying? Or like,
anything nice?
At least say you agree or disagree.
I agree.
Okay. Thanks, guys. All right, so enough of me talking. I'll hand it over to Kimi now to start the presentation, and then by 6 o'clock we'll move into the creative sessions. So I will now hand it over to you.